Thank you for tuning in to the series of entrepreneur case studies brought to you by iBoss Inc.'s Capital Academy and Lifecycle VC. Each segment will focus on an entrepreneur's business lifecycle story. The thought leaders behind Capital Academy and Lifecycle VC knew how valuable sharing these case studies with budding through seasoned entrepreneurs would be to confirm why we take this entrepreneurial ride so seriously. Each of us, having started and exited numerous businesses, have combined our focus to assist in roles to include fellow entrepreneur or sounding board, direct or lead investor for capital campaigns, and partner for strategy and growth paths. My name is Lorette Farris, and I am a veteran in the financial services industry with experience from Wall Street through crowdfunding. I am probably more excited about speaking with the entrepreneurs sharing their stories on Capital Academy than they are. So, now that you know who we are, let's get to it. Our inaugural guest is Glenn Garnes, a recovering attorney and serial entrepreneur. Glenn now adds his negotiating and problem-solving skills inherent in navigating legal matters to serve entrepreneurs in connecting with and serving their markets. This is the second segment with Glenn Garnes. Glenn, welcome back.
It's good to be back.
Thank you. So we initially spoke about who you are, what the business does, and, how you've come into this space. So now I want to sort of talk about, and let me first say thank you for trusting Lifecycle VC as an advisor as you go through the building of your business planning process. And that is really what I like to call it. It's a process that you go through, and sometimes entrepreneurs don't think about it, in that way. But now that we're in it and you've really gotten going, and I know what we used to talk about when you thought about going through the planning process and building a business plan or looking for capital. Talk to me about what your focus is now on how you're building the business internally, what's going on, what's the feeling, and again, just what are your thoughts now that you're in the process of actual business planning? And any thoughts you want to lay out in that respect?
Well, the first thought that I want to lay out is that that in the beginning, I was very resistant to the entire concept of raising capital for all kinds of reasons. Mm-hmm. And I have to confess that this has probably been the most valuable thing that I've done in my business. And I've been in business in some fashion or another for over 25 years. Right. So for me, it was an eye-opener. I've gained so much more insight into what the mission of the company should be versus what I had in my mind initially, and the ways that things can get accomplished, especially ways that they can be accomplished without me being in the middle of them in every instance. That it never would have come to my attention if I hadn't chosen to go through the process. So the process itself of working with you to build a business plan, to evaluate the financials and the economic needs of the company to achieve the things that we're looking to achieve, that by itself has been priceless. Whether we ever were funded or not, it was worth it to go through this process just for me to gain that insight that never would have materialized if I had just been thinking about the business at the level that I was before you came along.
And I got to tell you, I think that is exactly what happens for so many entrepreneurs. I think that what happens is when people hear a business plan, and it's all over the place. You can't start a business and someone doesn't tell you you have to have a business plan. And I think what happens is entrepreneurs almost shut down when they hear that, because the feeling is, I don't have time to do that paperwork, and and I think what's happened for you and what you just voiced is exactly what comes about. They start realizing that it's not so much about a document. it really is about thinking about laying out on paper and some real detail as to what you're going to do, what you need to do, and what you thought you wanted to do making sense or not. Because sometimes you wind up scrapping certain things that you thought you were going to do. Speak to that to me for a moment. How different does your business look now versus the way it looked when you stepped into the planning process?
Well, we've actually made some pivots that were based on your coaching and guiding me through the process. We made some changes to how we would approach execution of some of the things that we had in our mind to do. And we definitely have some different approaches with respect to how we would fund, the growth of the company relative to what we're trying to accomplish. All of that was a function of just stopping and starting to look through things through a different lens than the one that we had in our inexperienced and naivete developed for ourselves. So you basically, in guiding through the process, helped to open my eyes to some things that I was missing.
Right.
Because even though I am an entrepreneur, I think of myself as an entrepreneur being a creative individual. That doesn't mean that I'm great at executing on these great ideas that I think I come up with. So you helped me to put some reality and perspective into, okay, here's this idea that you have. What's it really going to take to make that happen? Both in terms of a plan, a process, economics, who is it going to really serve? All those types of things.
Yeah. And again, along with that, one of the other things I want to make sure we sort of pull out and touch on is a first-time entrepreneur versus a serial entrepreneur. First-time entrepreneurs think that someone who's been in business before knows it all, has the answers, know what to do. Oh, but I'm new to this, so I can't. And what they don't realize is each time you go to do something else, all the same parts are incorporated in doing that. So I love the fact that this is not your first rodeo. It's not the first time you've done business, been in business, or thought about things. So in that respect, can you also speak to, do you feel that had you gone through a process of this nature previously, if there would have been differences in how you have gotten to the place that you are today?
There's absolutely no question in my mind that there would have been differences. And in fact, that's why I feel that this process was so valuable, because it really was an enlightenment for me to see how much I was missing. Great ideas are just that. They're great ideas. Right. Great execution makes great ideas the power that they can be. And so I think back on all the things I've done in my lifetime as a business professional, and all the different ideas I'd come up with, and how much more powerful those ideas would have been with this type of guidance at that moment in time. I didn't know any better back then. In fact, when we first met a year ago, I was resistant to the whole concept. Here I am supposed to be the person trying to tell people to get out of their comfort zone and be open to new ideas, and I wasn't open to the idea of raising capital to accomplish what I wanted to do in my business. But now I see it from a completely different perspective, so I can tell you with confidence that all the things that I've done in business could have been dramatically enhanced by taking the time to understand what it meant to raise capital in business.
And it's funny when you bring that up. I remember that first day, I kind of smiled at you when you said, I'm not interested. I just sort of looked at you and said, all right, we're going to talk again in a couple of months from now.
Sure enough.
So I thought that was interesting. And, and clearly I don't want to take any credit away from myself, but I believe that that's what happens for anyone going into business when they're willing to be open and hear other people take advice from others. A lot of times those of us that are in business and we have a special discipline, we kind of step into things like, oh, I know that. And until we open ourselves to hear what someone has to say that might have a perspective on the other side of the fence, all of a sudden we learn more. When you're a coach, sometimes you don't want to listen to another coach.
Well, let me address that, because there was also a factor in here that you might not have thought about, which is that you mentioned these things to me very early on in my introduction to you. And so like anything else, there's a trust factor that goes into taking someone's advice.
Right.
Now, I didn't know a lot about your background when you first was sharing with me, hey, look, you might want to think about raising capital in your business. This is wonderful what you're doing here, and you might be able to accelerate the pace at which you can do it.
Right.
But after watching you work with the clients that you brought through here, you know, bringing people in the studio, the people that you were preparing to pitch to raise capital, I developed an incredible appreciation for, wow, now I get it. The light bulb literally went on for me after watching how you worked with your clients.
Gotcha.
And that changed my entire willingness. It made me more teachable,
Gotcha.
made me more open to the teachings, because I got a chance to see how other people were benefiting from what you were sharing with them.
I think that's significant, and so thank you so much for saying that. But I think that is another piece that sometimes we don't want to pay attention to, that we have to develop credibility in someone else's eyes. It's not just what we say, it's what we allow them to see who we are before they're then willing to engage. And I will clearly tell you that coming from Wall Street, you sort of walk in with a certain attitude that, oh, but I know that, and people are still looking at you like, yeah, but I don't know you. So I really do appreciate you saying that. Thank you. And because we both are in this space of being able to teach and train and coach other people, I think it becomes even more important that we show ourselves to others the way that we're doing right now, that just because this is what we do, it doesn't mean we have all the answers. But what it does mean is we've gone through enough to know that we too have to reach out for answers and information. And if any of the part of this conversation resonates with the early stage companies or entrepreneurs that might be watching this, I'm really happy that we've touched on at least that, because no one person knows it all, and I just want them to be open to taking in other information.
Well, probably the most important thing that I have learned or have gotten from the experience, the journey that you and I are on right now, is the importance of being teachable.
Yeah.
You know, as you know, I've read 5 books in the last 5 weeks. You didn't even ask me to do that, but that's what you stimulated. That's that's the enthusiasm that you stimulated by showing me how much I didn't know. I mean, just the whole concept of having to prepare myself to be an enterprise level CEO. I had no idea what was involved with that.
Yeah.
Probably one of the reasons why I didn't really explore it, because I didn't see myself as being capable of doing that. But you through your leadership and through the things that you shared with me, were able to interest me in that process at a level where I was okay with saying, okay, let me learn these things. And Lorette's going to take me along that path.
Right. And so again, that is so important for anyone who's looking to go into business to know. You have a lot of, most people that start a business started because they have an expertise in a certain area, or they're interested in a certain area, but that's what they know. And understanding when you go into business, not only do you have to do the things you like and the things you think you know, but accounting and marketing and finance, to me, is separate from just accounting, and personnel management and personnel development. All of those pieces you also have to learn. And sometimes a new person to business doesn't understand that they have to learn that. So you really did. You then pushed me to have to read some of the things that you were coming up with, because to be an advisor for you,
you had to know what I was exposing myself to.
Exactly. And so I think that that's just huge. And so if anything, everything we just said just means this entrepreneurial experience is a learning experience that doesn't end.
Exactly. And a lot of people, I know you coach to think about what the exit strategy is, and that's important for the reasons that you do, which is, what is your end game plan? But that doesn't mean that you should lose sight of how to enjoy the journey. Because the other thing is that you pointed out very, very astutely that, there's a lot of people that have expertise or an interest in something. That passion really is of interest to them. But when they start finding out that I have to know how to do this, or I have to find people to do it. I have to know I have to put the right team of people together. All of a sudden, that's when they start shutting down, because all they really want to do is pursue their passion.
Yeah.
But you helped me get out of my comfort zone. I'm not new to business.
Right.
I'm new to thinking the way you've chosen to teach me to think. And because of that, I'm actually going to have a greater impact on my community than I otherwise would if I'd stayed in my little thought process.
So thank you again. And so let me just try to get to the last part of what I want to make sure I'm pulling out of you. And you've said a little bit about it already, but talk to me about how you now perceive, how you now look at the using other people's money, the raising of capital to do your business. I know, again, when we initially talked about this, you were very reticent to even consider it, with your thought process being other people and, you know, investors and partners and things of that nature. And some of that doesn't always go away. But in understanding better what that could really look like, and the fact that you get to guide the process, it's not someone else who's sort of walking you into it. Talk to me about what you felt, or really talk to the entrepreneurs about how you felt about considering raising capital from other people to grow your business pre-advisory versus how you feel about it now, having a better sense of what's involved.
I think that pre-advisory, I was being unrealistic about how much could really reasonably be accomplished on a bootstrap basis. That's really all I can identify at that. It was unrealistic views of how much I could do on my own without other people's involvement economically.
Right.
And what I found was that when I started thinking about the fact that additional cash flow, additional investment would make it possible for me to have a major impact, a bigger impact more quickly. That's really what changed my mind, was that when I started thinking about, am I really looking to serve the maximum number of people possible? And will I do that if I continue to bootstrap? Or could I accelerate the pace at which we could make a difference, be significant to more people more quickly with the assistance from outside financing? And I made the decision that that's what I wanted. I wanted to have the ability to move more quickly into being significant to more people, because the greater the impact, the greater the result that we would create, not just for us, but also for the investors, who themselves reinvest the revenue that they generate from our effort to support other people that are making the same decision I made.
Right. So I am happy to hear that. And again, we'll continue to sort of talk through that as we do these continued series. But thanks, Glenn. Thanks for, again, being willing to share where you've been, where you are now, and where you're going, because other entrepreneurs that's taking the exact same walk needs that same information. So thank you again for this segment. We're stepping into the next one. And let me just say that just as Glenn and I were talking about building a business, planning the process, understanding the pieces and what you may have to do to grow into where you're trying to go with your business, are all parts of being that entrepreneur. Figuring out if you have the type of business that is designed to seek outside capital. And if you are, what does that really mean to you? What you can do with that capital, how you can employ it, is really where we're trying to get you to start thinking about. So if you like what we had to say in this segment, hold on to your hat, because we have more to bring you in the following segment with Glenn Garnes, who is the founder of Village Connector Media.